My dad kicked me out at 13 to please his pregnant wife. Now he lost everything and came begging for help. But what I did left him destroyed forever. I'm 18 years old, studying at university and working part-time at a store. And what happened 3 years ago still haunts me, though not in the way you'd think. The thing is, at 13 years old, my father literally kicked me out of his house in the middle of the COVID pandemic so his pregnant wife would be happy. And now, years later, he lost everything and came to ask me for help. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning because this story is way more complicated than it sounds. My parents got divorced when I was like 8 years old, and honestly, it was relatively amicable considering most divorces are a total disaster. My mom, Deborah, is a surgeon. I mean, she worked insane hours, but always made sure I was okay. My dad, Brian, remarried pretty quickly to Kimberly. And at first, everything was fine, like she was nice to me, and I'd spend weekends with them at their house in the Houston suburbs. It wasn't the typical evil stepmother situation you see in movies, or at least it wasn't yet. I alternated between both houses, and it worked. You know, it was weird, but it worked because both parents made an effort to be civil. Then March 2020 came, and you know what happened? The whole world stopped. COVID, lockdown, schools closed, all the chaos we all lived through. My mom, as a surgeon, was basically at the hospital day and night, working crazy shifts because hospitals were collapsing and she couldn't risk bringing the virus home to me. So we decided, well, more like my parents decided that it was best for me to stay with my dad and Kimberly during the lockdown. It seemed logical at the time. They had a bigger house. My dad was working from home anyway, and Kimberly had just gotten pregnant, so she was home too. I was 13 years old and I thought, okay, I can handle this. It's just a few weeks, maybe a couple months until things calm down. The first few months were weird but tolerable. I was stuck at home doing online classes, which was horrible for everyone at that time. And Kimberly was going through the first trimester of pregnancy with all the nausea and exhaustion that comes with it. My dad worked in his makeshift office in the dining room. I did my classes in my room, and Kimberly basically lived on the couch watching Netflix. It wasn't ideal, but it wasn't terrible either. You know what I mean? I missed my mom like crazy, but we'd FaceTime almost every day when she had time, and she always looked exhausted but tried to keep a positive attitude for me. But then, like 4 months into the pregnancy, something changed in Kimberly. And when I say something changed, I mean it was like she turned into a completely different person overnight. Suddenly, everything I did bothered her. If I made noise, it was too much noise. If I was quiet, why was I so quiet? If I ate a lot, I was finishing all the food. If I didn't eat, why was I wasting what she cooked? I literally couldn't do anything right. At first, I thought it was just pregnancy hormones. You know, everyone says pregnancy can make women more sensitive or irritable, and I tried to be understanding because I also didn't want to be the problem child in an already stressful situation. My dad started changing too, but in a different way. Every time Kimberly complained about me, he automatically took her side. It didn't matter how ridiculous the complaint was. He always said something like, "Well, son, you have to understand she's pregnant, and it's difficult for her," or, "Maybe you could be more considerate of her needs right now." I tried to explain my side, but he never wanted to listen. It was like suddenly I was this burden in his perfect life with his pregnant wife, and that hurt more than I can explain because this was my dad. The guy who used to take me to play basketball on Sundays and help me with my math homework. Things kept getting worse and my mental health basically went to hell. I started having anxiety attacks. I couldn't sleep well. And the worst part is, my hair literally started falling out. I had like these patches where my hair was falling out from stress, and when my mom noticed it on a video call, she almost lost it. She wanted me to come back with her immediately, but by that point we were already in summer 2020, and COVID cases were skyrocketing, and she worked directly with COVID patients, so it was still risky. Plus, my dad insisted everything was fine, that I was just being dramatic, his exact words, and that I just needed to adapt better to the situation. The moment that changed everything happened in August 2020. I was in the kitchen, making myself breakfast. I just wanted to eat a bowl of cereal. Nothing fancy, just Cheerios with milk. Kimberly came into the kitchen, saw I was using her cereal, even though it was supposedly cereal for the whole family, and literally grabbed the box and threw it in the trash. Just like that, with the cereal inside and everything. I just stood there in shock, like, did you really just do that? And she started yelling at me that I was eating all her food, that I was ungrateful, that I didn't appreciate everything they were doing for me, and basically that she was fed up with having me in her house. I exploded. After months putting up with her attitudes and her complaints and her passive-aggressive comments, I simply exploded. I yelled at her that this was also my dad's house, that I hadn't asked to be stuck there during a pandemic, and that she was being horrible to me for no reason. Maybe I shouldn't have yelled at a pregnant woman, but I was 13 years old. I was stressed to the point where my hair was falling out, and she had just thrown my breakfast in the trash like I was trash too. My dad heard the yelling and came running down. Kimberly immediately started crying and told him I had verbally attacked her, that I had disrespected her, that she couldn't live like this with so much stress because it wasn't good for the baby. My dad didn't even ask me what had happened. I didn't even look me in the eyes. He just stood next to Kimberly and put his arm around her shoulders. And then Kimberly said the words I'll never forget. He has to go. I can't take it anymore. It's him or me. Choose. And my dad chose. He looked at me and said, I think it's better if you go stay with your Aunt Ruth for a while, until we all calm down. I stood there unable to believe what I was hearing. I said to him, Are you kicking me out? Are you seriously kicking me out in the middle of a pandemic because your wife doesn't want me eating cereal? And he just repeated, Call your aunt, she'll come get you, and in the meantime, go pack your things. Kimberly was standing there with a satisfied smile on her face, like she had just won, and my dad was simply hugging her as if she were the victim in this whole situation. I didn't call my Aunt Ruth immediately. Instead, I went up to my room, grabbed my phone, and wrote everything on Instagram. I posted a story explaining exactly what had happened, that my dad was kicking me out because his pregnant wife didn't want me living there, that I'd been treated like trash for months, that my hair was falling out from stress. I didn't mention names, but everyone who knew me knew exactly who I was talking about. Then I packed a backpack with some clothes, literally climbed out my bedroom window because I didn't want to go back downstairs and see their faces, and walked like 6 blocks to my best friend Tyler's house at the time. Tyler's mom let me stay that night and lent me her phone to call my Aunt Ruth because I had left my phone on airplane mode after posting on Instagram. When I finally turned on my phone the next day, I had like 200 messages. My Instagram story had blown up, all my relatives had seen it, shared it, and basically my entire extended family was furious with my dad. My Aunt Ruth came to pick me up that same day, and she was livid. I'd never seen her so angry. She hugged me and told me everything was going to be okay, that I'd stay with her as long as necessary, and that my dad had made the biggest mistake of his life. My grandparents, my dad's parents, found out through social media too, and called my dad screaming at him. According to what my aunt told me later, they told him they were ashamed of him. How could he kick out his own child to please his wife, that he had failed as a father? My dad apparently tried to defend his decision, saying it was temporary, that he just needed space so his wife wouldn't be stressed. But my grandparents didn't want to hear his excuses. My mom also found out, obviously, and wanted to come get me immediately, but at that point I was already with my Aunt Ruth, and honestly didn't want to move again. There had been enough trauma for a while. I blocked my dad and Kimberly on absolutely everything. Instagram, phone, email, everything. I didn't want to know anything about them. My dad tried to contact me through other relatives, but I always said the same thing. I have nothing to say to him. He made his choice. My Aunt Ruth was incredible during all that time. She helped me get back into therapy, which I had started a few months before because of all the stress. She let me reorganize one of her rooms so it would be really mine, and basically treated me like I was her own son. My mom came to visit me whenever she could. And when things with COVID improved a bit, I could spend more time with her too. But my aunt's house became my base. The next few months were weird. My dad kept trying to contact me in increasingly desperate ways. He sent letters to my aunt's house, messages through my grandparents, even showed up once at school when we went back to in-person classes, which made me have a panic attack and the principal had to ask him to leave. Kimberly had the baby in November, a boy, and my dad sent me photos through my aunt's email trying to get me to meet my half-brother. I didn't respond. The truth is, I didn't feel anything toward that baby, not even curiosity. because to me it represented everything that had gone wrong. 2.5 years passed like that. I kept living with my Aunt Ruth, went to therapy regularly, my grades improved, my hair grew back. Basically, I rebuilt my life without my dad in it. My mom and I became much closer. She stopped working, such crazy hours after things with COVID stabilized, and I could spend almost every weekend with her. My grandparents tried a couple times to mediate between my dad and me, but I was always clear. I'm not ready to talk to him. Maybe I never will be. And you need to respect that. Eventually they stopped pushing, though I know it hurt them because he's their son, and obviously they wanted us to fix things. Then March of this year came, 2025, and my dad's life basically fell apart. I got a message from my grandmother, who he never blocked because she was always good to me, telling me that Kimberly had kicked my dad out of the house. Supposedly he had pushed her. During an argument, he swears it's a lie, that he only touched her shoulder and she dramatized everything. But she called the police. They put a restraining order on him. And basically he lost everything. The house was in both their names, but she forced him to sell his part to her at a ridiculously low price. She got full custody of the kid, and he ended up living in a friend's basement because he had nowhere to go. What happened next was like poetic cosmic justice. My grandparents, who had been upset with my dad since he kicked me out but always maintained contact because at the end of the day he's their son, basically told him they had put up with him for years, but this was the straw that broke the camel's back. They told him that if he had treated Kimberly badly, though he insists he didn't, then he learned it from treating his own child badly first. And they told him verbatim, according to what my grandmother told me, "We don't want to know anything about you until you fix things. With your son, he should have been your priority always, and you chose that woman over him. Now you're reaping what you sowed." My dad is devastated. He lost his wife, his house, his younger son, and now his own parents disowned him. And guess what he did? Like 3 weeks ago, he sent me a long email. He found my new email through, I don't know who, basically begging me to talk to him. He said he understood he had made a terrible mistake, that he'd been thinking about it every day for these years, that he was deeply sorry, and that now that he'd lost everything, he realized how stupid he'd been. But here comes what really bothered me. At the end of the email, he said that if I could talk to my grandparents, convince them to forgive him, because without them, he had no support from anyone, and he was really in a bad financial and emotional situation. I mean, are you kidding me? This man hadn't contacted me in years after all his failed initial attempts, and now that his life is in pieces, he comes to ask me for help. Not because he really wants to fix our relationship, but because he needs me to mediate with his parents so they'll give him money or a place to live. I responded, and my response was very simple. No. I'm not going to talk to the grandparents for you. They made their own decision just like you made yours years ago. I don't owe you anything. Fix your own life. And I blocked him from that email too. My Aunt Ruth asked me if I did the right thing, if maybe I should at least listen to him or give him a chance to explain himself in person. But the truth is, I don't feel anything toward him anymore. Not even anger. Just indifference. He had years to fix things with me, years to show that I mattered even a little bit, and he never did until he needed me for something. That's not love. That's not real regret. That's just desperation. My grandparents remain firm in their position. My grandmother called me last week and told me they knew my dad had contacted me, that he had told them I refused to help him, and that they completely supported me. She told me they had made it clear to him that until he really apologized to me, until he made a genuine effort to repair the damage without expecting anything in return, they didn't want to talk to him. And honestly, I felt validated, because for a long time I wondered if I was being too harsh, if I was exaggerating. But hearing my own grandparents say he was wrong confirmed that I'm not crazy. I don't know what's going to happen with my dad. I suppose eventually he'll get another job, find another place to live, maybe even rebuild his relationship with his parents if he really does the work of being a better person. But I'm not going to be part of that, at least not now, and maybe never. I'm 18 years old. I'm starting university in a few months. I have an incredible relationship with my mom and my Aunt Ruth, and I finally feel stable after years of therapy and working on myself. I don't need the drama or the toxicity that comes with letting my dad back into my life just because he's now suffering the consequences of his own decisions. That probably sounds cold, but it's the truth. Last week, my mom took me to look at apartments near the university where I'm going to study. While we were walking through campus, she asked me how I felt about everything with my dad, and I told her exactly this. I feel free. Free from the guilt I used to feel wondering if I had done something wrong. Free from the hope that someday he would wake up and realize what he did. Free from needing his approval or his love. And she hugged me and told me she was proud of me. That not everyone has the strength to set those boundaries, especially with their own parents, but that I had done the right thing to protect myself. And I think that's enough for now, I guess.